This is not just an entertainment device or a toy, but this is a fundamental step change in how kids are listening to content and spending a significant portion of their day. And so I think when viewed less as a toy, it is a fun toy, it will always be a toy, but when also viewed through the lens of being a tool and a device to promote learning and development, I think that has the potential to be a world-changing idea. And that's kind of my mission here in education, is to pursue that and to make it available to as many children as possible.
In a world where screens dominate children's attention, a quieter revolution is taking place, one powered by sound, imagination and storytelling. In the next Pulse episode, I speak to Drew Vernon, Director of Education at Tonies. Drew takes us inside the remarkable rise of the Tony box and why it's resonating with families, educators and therapists all over the world. From its unexpected journey into classrooms to its powerful role in supporting emotional development, Drew unpacks how audio-based learning is helping children build focus, creativity, and deeper connections. Our conversation also explores a timely question. How will AI shape the future of educational content, and what does that mean for the next generation of learners? Whether you're a parent like myself, educator, or simply curious about the future of learning, this episode offers a thoughtful look at how a simple idea of listening can have a profound impact on all of us. Sincerely hope you will enjoy the next episode with Drew Vernon of Tonybox. Yes, and we are live with another interview of Pulse by AlphaWire. And for me, this is such a great celebration of podcasting, but also of talking to people and people that I haven't spoken to for a while. One of these people is Drew Vernon, Director for Education at Tonies. First of all, Drew, how are you? Great that you could join us.
I'm doing well, Aldo. Thanks for having me.
Drew, I was saying in a very weird way that is, I'm so happy to talk to you again because it has been, I think, 2 years that we spoke to each other last. We did some interviews as well. So podcasting got us connected because the producer of Pulse, Natalie, also helped you out back in the day. And then Natalie connected us because we were both doing something in and for education. Now, your story is far more advanced and far more admirable than mine, but that's what got us connected initially. And I want to start with, if I look at your LinkedIn page, Drew, and I think that is so hilarious, so spot on, it says former child. It doesn't say director for education. It's first of all says former child, which I like. Do you still feel like a child?
The reason that I put that on there is to help me remember, because I was a child and I think, we're children and that's easy to forget. And I think it's important to remember. So I put that on there as a reminder for myself.
Yeah. And so now you are working for this amazing product that I even feel pride for, even though it is completely vicariously living my life through you. But when I see it in the supermarket, because it's everywhere, the Tony box, right? So it is literally a box, a radio, looks like a radio, and on top of the radio you can put these figurines, and once the figurine is on, you get the most beautiful stories. My daughter, 6 years old, is in love with it. She's recording her own messages with her mom. So it's an amazing journey. And so many other children all over the world have been inspired. So I want to talk about that. Like, did you ever expect such a success as a former child when you started at Tony's?
Yeah, I mean, I did see the potential. I've been with Tony's for about 6 years now. So I came on as part of the U.S. launch team back in 2020, and I had seen what they had done in Germany, where we originated, and saw the response in the early years in Germany, and believed that this was something with tremendous potential in North America and across the world.
Yeah, so specifically, it's a German company making strides in the US. So as a launch team, how big a team were you when you started in 2020?
There were about 8 of us to start. So I came on about 6 months before the actual launch, which took place in September of that year.
Okay.
And, it's grown from that small team into a much, much larger team today in 2026.
Much, much larger, as in How many times bigger, or
I think in the US, we're up over 120
Wow.
employees. I
Yeah,
think globally, it's I think
yeah.
500 or 600 employees.
That's amazing. So yeah, part of the launch team, and you made some shifts, and this is also why what I think is so interesting, because clearly when we started talking, as I said before, you had this love for education. You were part of the marketing team, but then moved more towards education. Why that trajectory?
So I came from Lego. I managed their preschool department, and I had some of my best success there working on educational programs. And that is really what started my spark. So after I came over to Tony's in a marketing capacity, I found little ways to explore and share the educational benefits of our product. I ended up starting a program called Tony's for Teachers, which was to get the Tony box in front of educators. And that grew into Tony's for librarians and Tony's for pediatricians and Tony's for occupational therapists and Tony's for this and Tony's for that. Eventually became Tony's Education, and I moved over a couple of years ago to now focus on this full time.
That's great. So it's kind of more looking for the pedagogical purposes on an institutional sense. That's is that what you're doing more,
Yeah,
or
I would say it's we're well known for being kind of a retail product that, families have at home in the nursery or the bedroom. I started to look at the other kind of usage occasions and the usage settings, which included some of these more public and kind of multi-purpose cases in
yeah,
schools and libraries and other places.
yeah. And from your journey into education now these years, is there anything that struck you that you thought, okay, that's very different than I thought it would be?
I think I'm surprised just by kind of the motivators and the incentives. For me, looking in the education program now are quite different than marketing. I think marketing a lot of times is focused heavily on licenses, popular characters, Peppa Pig and Disney princesses. I think it's also heavily reliant on bringing newness to the market. So you always have to have kind of the new product. In education, it's more about the learning objectives and outcomes, where you obviously want to have quality content and you want to have a variety of characters and a big assortment, but it's more about what it's doing as the child listens and plays, and maybe less so on licensed characters and, always having the newest characters.
Yeah. So you're closer to the curriculum often. So they want you to get involved with how things are taught and how it leads to tangible results in school.
Yeah, I would say we're still kind of using promoting a lot of the same products and characters as the retail business, but more and more we're finding opportunities to design specifically for learning objectives and for early literacy. And so that's one thing that I'm looking forward to on an ongoing basis, is doing more kind of specialized content for these educational settings.
This reminds me of a story on a tangent, but I wanted to share it with you that a few years back I was here in Aberdeen talking to, for a variety of reasons, talking to social services in a good sense of the word, just getting my head around child adoption, and what's so important in the earliest phases of an adoption trajectory is that the adoptive parents and the adoptive child get to know each other, but they cannot see each other yet. And the lady that I was talking to is like, very often they want to get to know each other's voices, and she told me that a Tony box is a good tool to kind of do that exchange in a non-intrusive way so that a child can hear the voices of the adoptive parents and the other way around, to get to know each other without going too fast, because that's very important that you don't go too fast. You don't want to traumatize anyone. The entire adoption might also be reversed, the trajectory, if it's not official yet. So there are so many things to keep in mind. And she highlighted Tony's as the Tony box as a great tool to take it down a notch, but still to get to know one another and still get acquainted to the sound of each other's voice. And I thought it was such a beautiful use case that I had never thought of. So I wanted to make sure that I fed that back to you, that this is also what the Tony box is being used for.
Yeah, you make a really great point. When I started, it was mostly about the educational benefits, the benefits to learning. As you mentioned, we are discovering more and more emotional benefits and other benefits as well. So you mentioned social services, and we're exploring and have been doing a variety of programs in that space with foster care and with adoption, and also with incarceration, connecting families with incarcerated parents to their children. So that's something that is really important work for me.
Let's go to the audio aspect because we live in this era whereby people just can't get away from their screens. Not only people, also kids, including myself. Sometimes I'm doom scrolling and I have absolutely no idea why. I think a couple of years back we were already talking about that, but I think it's only gotten worse since we spoke a couple of years back, up to the level that justifiably so, governments in Australia and in the UK as well are prohibiting use of social media and are advising kind of just a number, like a set number of hours that a child, for instance, below 5 can be behind the screen. So, so otherwise it would be damaging. Tony's is, of course, such a good alternative as it is audio and not video. It doesn't lure you in with all the screen addiction. You must have discussed that within Tony's as well, that is a good position to be in. Is that also your version, or would you think something completely different?
No, yeah, I would agree with that. Again, we started here in the US in 2020, which is, famously the year of Corona 19 and the
Yeah.
pandemic, where schools shut down. I think that was really an accelerator to parents giving their children screens earlier ages and for longer period of time. At the time, it was maybe more publicized, but the recommended daily average screen time for a child up to 5 years old is an hour per day. And, I've seen studies showing that up to two-thirds or more of children are exceeding that. So, 2 out of 3 kids having more than an hour of screen time a day. And it's because after the pandemic subsided, we had trained ourselves with some bad habits. And I think it's becoming increasingly difficult. And now you're seeing, families at restaurants where to keep the kids quiet, they're looking at their iPad. I see kids on iPads at the park, on a sunny day. And, I don't mean to judge any family's situation or their habits, but we are aiming to provide an alternative to that, which is important because, as you mentioned, it does remove the screen, which is kind of intended and literally designed to be an engagement device where you're giving a child or an adult, kind of like a dopamine payoff every few seconds to keep them on the screen. And by removing that screen and providing content that's audio only, it helps training the attention, and it helps to really focus on a narrative or a piece of content that's longer than what you would normally see on a screen, which is changing very rapidly.
Now, on your phone, for instance, so I have Audible on my phone. So I also have an audio option or Spotify or kind of all those things. Is there such a thing as being addicted to audio content? Is that something that exists? I don't know. Maybe, you might not know either. But have you seen ever any negative effects of doing too much audio, or it might not exist? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I haven't thought of specifically, in my experience and my experience with kind of other adults is that a lot of audio is played kind of as an addition to another activity. So if you're, driving to work, I like to listen to podcasts or audiobooks while I clean the house. And so I see it more of kind of a value add because it's not commanding my full attention. I think as it pertains to children, one of the benefits of the Tony box versus, listening to Spotify is that they can operate the entire experience from start to finish without the screen. And so there's no chance of distraction of getting into other games or apps or things. And there's also a tactile element to it as well. So we're figure based, where a lot of, the transition from CD players of the 1990s to the early 2000s was, first going to MP3s and then to streaming audio. And what that did is that took the tactile element out, which is an important step for kids because this is something that they can hold, and it's also something that they can play with and identify with as a character. So those are some additional elements that kind of lend well to the Tony Box experience.
Yeah. So I have one question. I'm not a child anymore, and I do like my audio books. So would you ever consider Tony box for adults? like that's good that I can listen to like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from the first entry, we had the traditional Tony figures, which I just showed. These probably are most suitable to the younger kids. But now we're launching products, like our audiobooks. So these are going to be for older kids, probably up to ages 6 to 10. And, a next extension of this is to have something that's going to be age appropriate content for a teenager or for an adult. But the system is in place and the platform is there for any type of content or curriculum.
So this podcast is about how science and technology changes education and science. Like it sounds very steady what you're doing with the Tony box, and I, I'm a big fan, so all admiration to you. Have you seen any changes because of AI? Has anything changed for you, maybe for the better or for the worse, because of artificial intelligence in how you build your product and what you do? And if so, would you care to share what that would be?
Yeah, obviously, AI is a pressing topic and a rapidly changing topic. I don't know if I have a definitive stance on it. I have a couple of worries with it, which is just as it pertains to critical thinking and creativity development. And so I think when used as a tool, I think there's a lot of potential with AI. But if not careful, if we leave the decisions to AI, or we train ourselves to not need to think critically, that could be a negative, particularly for a young child whose brain is still developing, who hasn't gone through critical thinking process to come up with these decisions and conclusions. So currently, our stance at Tony's is we don't have AI creating content. All of our content is produced the traditional way. We do a lot of licensed content, so we're working with partners like Sesame Workshop and Disney and National Geographic and others. But that's all kind of human inputs. I can't say definitively if it will always be that way, but that's currently how it is. And I think we do need to be mindful of the opportunities and risks of AI.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about it as like in the content creation process. I was also thinking in understanding, and that might be in a good way of understanding the your users better and interpreting kind of what they're listening to, how often they listen, et cetera, to make new informed decisions and to see kind of specifically if you look at the curriculum how that could be improved and let AI do loads of interpretation for you. So that could be a good use case essentially just because there are so many data points that the human brain cannot really process and can bring to results. But I appreciate that also voice actors is of course very important, and just like actors on TV, I would hate for them to be replaced by AI. It feels very weird if I look at it now, but. Yeah, I know that we're also at the very beginning, so maybe in a few years we won't be able to tell the difference. I don't know. Yeah, see where that goes. But I do appreciate that the good old fashioned, like, you know, before there was TV, there was radio. So people listened to each other and
Mhm.
listened to stories. And I think that's what Tony's has been able to kind of recreate, right? To just the old fashioned listening process. And that can be done at any hour of the day, right? As I said previously when we spoke, my daughter, she loved Tony's when she was in the bath, just to listen to the story. I do not allow Tony's before bed because I want to read to my daughter. I don't want Tony's to read, but the Tony box is a feisty competitor on that level. For you, the journey within Tony's. So if you look at education and then if you look at the adoption rate, so are you seeing a lot more uptake? Are you seeing kind of loads more teachers and students resorting to Tony boxes? So is that kind of a very growing business, or is it more like identifying still individual use cases and then seeing where you could help, or has it matured already?
Yeah, I would say we're still kind of spreading awareness. So a lot of, we came in basically as a new brand and a new category back in 2020. So there weren't a lot of audio players for kids 6 years ago. So now we're 6 years in market in the US, we're 10 years in market globally. And there are more people who understand the Tony box, but still many people are thinking of that in a home setting. So there's still more work to do in an educational setting, but we are growing rapidly. We're essentially doubling year on year in educational spaces, and
Yeah.
we're in tens of thousands of classrooms now. We're in over 1,000 libraries here in the United States, where they're being used in center, they're being used in circulation. So I would anticipate that growth trajectory to continue in the foreseeable future.
And I don't know if you can say, but in terms of product development, what is Tony's going to bring? You just already highlighted like getting it to older kids and from there on even adults, kind of, making it slightly more for everyone rather than for the younger kids. Is there anything else that Tony's might want to get into that the consumer hasn't seen yet? Give us a scoop.
I don't know if I can talk in specifics, but company priority has been to lower kind of the age as well as to increase the age. So we started at kind of like a 3 to 5 age target. We now have products for 1+ all the way up to about 9 to 10+. Me in education, ongoing priority for me is to take a look at some of these specific cases where we see that speech development is a big opportunity, where we have even normal speech development or delayed speech development. We have reports of kids kind of learning to speak through the aid of a Tony box, occupational therapy, not to mention specific curriculum topics, taking a look at different subjects, math, science, reading, language, social studies, to build that out and to do it across different age targets and school grades will keep us busy for a very long time.
Yeah. That's plenty to crack on with. You're right. It's kind of like, what's new is like, well, going in depth, right? And making sure you can make that difference rather than just touch and go. Is like, okay, where can you be a difference? And I can imagine you learn so much from your users in that respect, right? So how they are using it, how they are applying it, and they give you good use cases, maybe to grow in whichever direction you want to grow. What I just see that after I started recognizing Tony's is that it's everywhere. You can buy those figurines in our local Asda, kind of, which is this big supermarket whereby they're available. So it's become very widespread because I remember when we were introduced to each other, I think it was more like you need to order it online, but now it's available everywhere. It's such a brand that's recognized everywhere. So yeah, good on you. And as I said before, I'm vicariously proud because of it. So that is great. Talking about pride and if you look back, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the platform that we're building. And I think fundamentally, this is not just an entertainment device or a toy, but this is a fundamental step change in how kids are listening to content and spending a significant portion of their day. And so I think when viewed less as a toy, it is a fun toy. It will always be a toy. But when also viewed through the lens of being a tool and a device to promote learning and development, I think that has the potential to be a world-changing idea. And that's kind of my mission here in education, is to pursue that and to make it available to as many children as possible.
Yeah. I now all of a sudden recall that you used to make podcasts as well, and you also interviewed one of your kids. Is that correct?
Yes, I do have a podcast with my daughter. We started it during the pandemic, actually, when she was 4. She's 9 now, and we're still podcasting, and it's just been a good way to connect with her. And it's kind of brought her out of her shell. It's helped to develop and cultivate her creativity. And again, it's just focusing on conversation and audio. And that's been a huge benefit to our relationship and her development.
That's amazing, that level of exchange. It also shows that it's not only about listening, it's also about speaking, right? Because it also works as a recording device. So it works on two sides. I appreciate your podcast might be elsewhere, but it's just like the exercise of using audio to develop yourself further in whichever direction.
Right.
Um, this is so great. When I see Tony's, I think of a very good way of dealing with content that is just getting more and more. I mean, let's face it, there's so much content to process for us human beings. And I think the most difficult bit of that is that we're also so eager to process all of it, which backfires when it comes to tech addiction with screens, But I think if it goes through audio, it's a lot friendlier and hopefully also a lot better from a neurodevelopmental perspective. So I think this is a very good way of showing the world how you can deal with that. And, our urge always to absorb as much content as we can. And I think Tony's is such a great way of applying it. So yeah, again, I've already said it, but great work that you guys are doing. For my two very last questions, Drew, and I ask them always to everyone. One is about reading. So, is there in your career at Lego and at Tony's, has there been any reading that has inspired you? So that for the people listening in and they say, "Oh, I would love to, ever work as a director of education at Tony's." Has there been anything that kind of sparked your interest and that got you on your way? Any reading you would care to share?
Uh, a couple of examples popped out in my mind, and they're kind of on two different spectrums. So, one of the books that actually inspired me at a young age was a Dr. Seuss book called The Sneetches, and it's a social commentary. It's a commentary about business and marketing, and that has kind of just shaped my framing as a marketer. I think more for adult literature. I'm thinking of a book called Factfulness by Hans Rosling. It's a few years old. I think he's actually passed away, but it's a look at the world from an optimistic view to show that we're actually making a lot of progress as a society to bring people out of poverty and to educate the developing world. And in a world of chaos and uncertainty and a lot of strife, it has kind of shaped my worldview and inspired me to be optimistic about the future and for the coming generation.
Nice, Dr. Zeus and Factfulness, like good combi.
Yeah.
Both, I think, very inquisitive, right? Make you think about the world. And yeah, I'm with you on the optimism. I think there's too much doom and gloom. Also, because it works as clickbait, we just rather like to hear the bad news than the good news. But actually, we shouldn't allow ourselves to be made unhappy, specifically not by content. And again, kudos for Tony's for bringing positive content to people. My very last question, and I ask everyone because I'm just fascinated by it. I don't know why. Do you have a morning routine? And if so, do you care to share?
I have an ideal morning routine that I have yet to perfect. But when I'm at my best, I try to wake up early and really just sit with myself for 30 minutes. I try to stay off the screens until 8 a.m. Again, I'm not perfect at this, but I really try not to let outside distractions start my day. And so I try to set myself grounded. I tried to drink a green smoothie as the first thing I eat in the day. And then I work towards hopefully other healthy food. But again, this is more of an idealist exercise than a perfection strategy. But trying to set some time for myself, start the day right, and to eat healthy, which sometimes deteriorates over the course of the day. But at least having a good morning routine is important for me.
And you're right, it's not always easy because you've got your kids coming through and most likely loads of things to crack on with. So yeah, you're only human. So, but it's good on you for trying. What's in the green smoothie, by the way?
So I usually have spinach, avocado, cucumber, grapes, apple. Sometimes I'll throw in some pears or some plums, some turmeric, and some flaxseed.
Oh, so it's you make it yourself. You
I
kind
do,
of
yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice, nice. Well, and so I lied about the last question. What's the name of your podcast so that other people can listen to it?
It's called Childhood.
Childhood, childhood, and available on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Drew, thank you so very much for your time. The world has already heard a lot about Tony's, but I'm sure they're going to hear a lot and a lot more. Thank you so much for all the hard work you do at Tony's, and good luck on your journey. Thanks so much, Drew Vernon.
Appreciate that, Aldo. It's been nice to be in touch with you over the years, and I appreciate the work that you're doing as well. And thanks again for having me.
You've listened to Pulse by Alpha Wire, produced by Natalie Piles and Amela Faisal, with great music, The Optimist, written by Holly Hamill, performed and produced by ALO. Episodes hosted weekly by me, Aldo de Pauw.